Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Folks, you're very welcome. It's Rob Magee, CEO from Ingenio. Hope everyone is well. Whether you're joining us this morning live on Zoom or watching back the recording afterwards, or indeed listening in to our podcast channel or following us on YouTube. Delighted to have you with us today. Just in terms of a little bit of an intro, as I said, my name is Rob Magee. I'm the CEO at Ingenio. We have built a business called Ingenio Learning, which helps people just like you get hired by technology, software, and SaaS organizations. And what we are talking about, and what we've been talking about last week, this week, and for the next 2 weeks over the course of May, very specifically, is we are talking about how to help you in the job interview process. So why is that important? It's important because, and as people know, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a number of people who join these sessions who don't seem to have any issues or problems with their CV or with their submission or their application. And in some cases, they don't even have issues with some of the sessions that they're doing, some of the interviews that you're doing. But something is falling down during the interview process. And as we spoke about last week, an interview process could be 4 or 5 touch points, 4 or 5 sessions, 4 or 5 contact points, but something is falling down there. And really, I guess, look, the objective of what we are trying to do in terms of helping you is really to try and understand that entire interview process so that you can nail it from beginning to end. Over the course of May, so last week we spoke about actually owning the interview process. I think that was a brilliant session. Organizations are constantly evolving and changing the way that they interview so that they make less mistakes, so that they get straight to the point in some instances. And certainly we're seeing it a lot with clients right now. They're really trying to accelerate the interview process. So that's really important that you understand what stage you're at in an interview process so that you can perform accordingly. And every interview, as we spoke about last week, is slightly different. We're going to talk about when you finish the interview today. So regardless of how it's gone or regardless of what stage you're at, we're going to talk about the 3 things that you've got to go and do after the interview. Okay, really, really important that we kind of try and get you to pre, during, and post. And then look, there's 2 more topics to follow in May that really complete the series. And again, really, really high value sessions. Okay, so 3 things that you have to do after an interview. So really, really important. Really, really, really important. Okay, that you, when the interview session finishes, probably within a half an hour or an hour, right? But really, really quickly after the interview session finishes, it's really important that you get yourself into a quiet place, quiet space, pen and a piece of paper, and you gather your feedback. Okay. And that you document that. And look, I think there's a couple of things there that basically, there's a couple of things that you need to kind of focus on. HWYD, how well you did. Okay, how well you did. And this is really important in terms of capturing how the session went. Okay. So the first thing is, I would really want to get you to understand, okay, what went well. So was it rapport? Was it engagement? Was it how you answered particular questions? Was it, maybe the objectives that you set out at the beginning of the interview for yourself in terms of the things that you wanted to get covered off? It's really, really important that you start off scoring and rating yourself with the things that you did well. Okay. Really, really important. The next thing that you need to line out or call out then is maybe what didn't go well. So was there a particular question that you didn't answer well? Did you open up well? Did you or not? Um, how did your opening statement, so how did you, when you were asked to go and pitch yourself, talking about what we talk about lots in the course, the you story, really, really important that you kind of focus in on that. So what didn't go well? And that's really, really important to make sure that you've kind of that you've got that documented. The next thing then, in terms of, I guess, critiquing your own performance, would be what lessons have you learned off the back of that interview? Okay, was there maybe a technique that the interviewer used that you maybe haven't seen or experienced before? Were there any questions that really threw you, again, that maybe you haven't experienced? Is there anything that you would do differently in terms of preparation, in terms of technique, in terms of engagement? That's really, really important. And the last thing then, in terms of critiquing this, so how well you did, the last thing then, really, really important, is what actions, what commitments, what follow-ups, what next steps, and what timescales were agreed in the interview. Okay, it's really, really important that you capture that, document it, and make sure that you've got effectively a log of that. Okay, really, really important that you do that as quickly as possible. And the reason that that's important is there is obviously, the heart is beating and the adrenaline is flowing straight after an interview. You'll typically know whether you've done really well, and things have engaged well, or you'll typically know if you've performed maybe not to the level that you were expecting. But it is really important to be able to capture your feedback. Okay, once you've documented that, the very next thing that you've got to go and do is pick up the phone and speak to either the individual in HR. So if you're working with an organization who have their own internal HR team, so i.e. the person that maybe has coordinated the meeting for you, that's really, really, or maybe it might be an internal recruiter, or indeed if you're working with a recruitment agency or a recruiter, like let's say, for example, like ourselves at Ingenio, it's really, really important that you engage really, really quickly from a feedback perspective. Why? Because it shows your level of commitment, your level of interest, your level of participation, and really importantly, your level of professionalism. Okay. What would you be doing in that call with a recruiter or the HR person? Well, basically what you're doing is you're going to be lifting up your critique. So how well you did, you're basically going to be saying, look, Rob, that was a brilliant interview. It lasted 35 minutes. I met with, with Paula, with Stephen, and with Marcel. We spoke about the following things. This was the structure. These were the questions that they asked me. These were the questions that I asked them. I think I did really well in this section, maybe didn't do so well in this section. And look, I think, if I was to score myself out of 10, I'd probably say I was an 8.5 out of 10. I'm really interested in the job opportunity and really interested in progressing further. Okay. Why is it important that you go and do that? It's really, really important from a kind of a connection and engagement point that you show these guys some level of, as I said, engagement, some progress and real positivity. It is incredible. It is absolutely incredible the amount of people that we put forward that go through for interview that just choose to ignore the service provider or the facilitator or the connector in that piece. And by doing that, you're ruling someone out. So you absolutely have to go and do it. And clearly, if you think about a recruiter or someone in HR who's representing you, if they're able to go to the hiring manager in advance, like if you know, when they're looking for feedback, which is ultimately what's going to be happening. And they can turn around and say, hey, I've just spoken to Rob Magee, and I believe the interview's gone really well with you three guys, and these were the things that maybe he's done, he feels he's done particularly well. Maybe he felt he didn't do particularly well in this area. Straight away, like, that hiring manager's like, God, this guy's really engaged. So the impact it has is dramatic. Okay. Really, really, really important. The last thing I will say to you is, you absolutely must write a thank you email, or a thank you message, or a thank you LinkedIn mail, or a WhatsApp or text message, whatever the case may be. You absolutely must follow up the interview, and say something like, dear Rob, very quick note, I wanted to thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed interviewing with you. I felt, you know, I performed really well, or I really enjoyed, you know, the way you answered that question, or your overview of your team. I love the vision that you've got. And listen, I'm really keen to progress. Look forward to hearing from you or your team. It's not asking for feedback. It's just saying thank you. And what does that show? It just shows, again, positive engagement. So it's really, really, really important. You know, and listen, it's, you make it your business to find out, you know, the contact details for the individual that you're going to be interviewing for. But hopefully you've already done that well in advance of going for an interview with someone anyway. Okay. So the three things you must do, these things, folks, are very, very important. They're high value. Again, they have a massive impact. It's not difficult. It's not time intensive. But look, if you've got your head really switched on in terms of what this piece looks like, then guaranteed you will make a really, really positive impact very, very quickly on all of the people that you'll be engaging with post-interview. Hope that makes sense. Delighted now to take some questions from you. And look, as you're maybe dropping those questions into me, you heard me talk at the very beginning. We built Ingenio Learning to get people like you, to help people like you get hired by tech, software, and SaaS organizations. Ingenio Learning is a course that we have built very, very particularly and specifically with topics just like I've kind of high level skimmed over here today. 90% of our students get hired within 90 days by tech, software, and SaaS organizations. So that's a really proud metric and success flag stamp that we have. You're seeing some of the students who have taken our course and gone through the program, and you've seen some of the things that some of the outcomes that they have achieved by purchasing or buying our course, taking the course, and then effectively implementing the recommendations, the hacks, the techniques, the tips, the strategies from that. And look, really specifically, these are the types of organizations who end up hiring our students. Some really fantastic global brand names from a tech perspective, some organizations maybe that are a little smaller and niche that maybe you don't necessarily know, but all equally hugely exciting businesses. And look, our gift to anyone who is tuned in today on the webinar is a really significant discount of our list price from the course. And I really want you to think about, look, you know, what does 30 euros, what does that mean to you in terms of your career? What would that mean when you land that dream job? And I think that's really important, that I want to try and get people thinking about the cost versus the benefit, the input versus the output, and the outcome. Really, really important. Some details to follow up after the call or after the session.